So this book is probably one of the most impactful books that has been written in the past 40 years when it comes to impact on the life insurance industry. I am continuing my book review of this with part 2 in this video. And what I want to do is I want to go through the elements of the foundation, the philosophy of what the Becoming Your Own Banker book has done to help people understand a different way of thinking about money to be able to achieve more predictable results in their life. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're notified every time I launch a new video, because I'm gonna launch at least one book review of this for a section until I get through this whole thing. And it's a pretty in-depth book, and so it's probably gonna be a 12+ video review series just to help kind of give my insight on what this book is all about. So I hope you're excited about it. Make sure you subscribe. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, Cashflow hackers? It's Chris with LIFE180, and for this video, we're doing part 2 of the Becoming Your Own Banker book review series. If you haven't already, make sure you watch part 1 first. We're continuing that. I'll put the link for the playlist up here. Just make sure you go check out that playlist if you haven't already. So no matter where you are in this, make sure you save that playlist, watch it, go through it, and I'm gonna go through this book section by section, and it will help you. Now, here's the deal. I'm gonna put this down. We covered last time a little bit about the philosophy and about kind of what my thoughts are on the foundational level of what the infinite banking concept is. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna get into more of the next level of the philosophy. We're gonna be getting into the idea of the need to use imagination. There's a section in this, I think it's page 14. One of the chapters is called Imagination. And the idea here is we need to think outside of the box. If you look at the results that everybody has in this world, like 95% of the people in this world are not happy with the results in their life. And so if we go do what they're doing, we're gonna get the results that they get. And unfortunately, most people are just doing what they're doing because their neighbor's doing it, and because they're just told to go out and invest and save their money in certain ways and structure their financial lives in certain ways. But the reality is, what we need to do is we need to think outside of the box. We need to be really intentional about accomplishing our goals, setting specific objectives in our lives, and be able to reverse engineer those, a plan to be able to accomplish that. And the beautiful part about this book and what he's getting to in this section, and it's a pretty simple section, but what he's really trying to show is, like, there are simple systems and simple ways utilizing absolute principles that can get you where you want to go. The thing I love about this, when you utilize a properly designed whole life insurance policy as a foundational asset in your life, and he doesn't say it like this exactly in the book, but this is the reality. I'm kind of injecting my own philosophies into what he's saying in the book, but it's when you have that asset in place, it puts you as the centerpiece of the success of your financial life. It puts you through, it sets up a filter so you can make every decision through this filter. It's gonna help you become better and become who you need to be to live the life that you wanna live. And to me, that's a really important part. And then in the next section, he talks about his analogy of the grocery store. And so the chapter is titled The Grocery Store. And he gets into this example, and you've probably heard a lot of infinite banking practitioners talk about or utilize this phrase saying, don't steal the peas, right? Like it's one of those things, and it's a really simple concept, but it's one that very few people execute, unfortunately, right? Like I don't know how to put it. It's one of those things, to me, that's so simple, but it's also so hard. It's simple to understand, but it's hard to execute because the discipline that it takes is challenging. And it actually goes back. I remember I had a buddy who owned a restaurant, and whenever I would go out he owned an Irish pub. We'd go out to dinner, I'd get a beer, and we'd get some food or whatever, and I'd go with him all the time, and every time he would always pay. And I'm like, I remember, and this is before I was in the insurance business. This is way before. And I remember I would see him and I'd watch him pay, and I'm like, dude, this is his restaurant. I wonder why he's like paying like this. But Nelson Nash talks about it in this book. If you don't pay as the owner, as the person who's setting these rules in place for success for the business and for your life, because the business and the revenue from that business is his life, right? That is what it is. If you own the grocery store, if you own that restaurant, the success of that business is your livelihood, right? So if I go in and just because I'm capable and I own it and I'm able to pull out the peas or pay for, or just take the food for free and not pay for it, it's doing a couple things. A, it's stealing from the profits because those are both businesses with not a lot of profit margin. So he uses an example in the book basically saying for every can of peas that the business spends 57 cents on, and this is old, by the way, when he wrote this book, obviously, because now peas are probably more expensive than that. But he was saying they're 57 cents for peas, and then you have that you sell them for 60 cents. So it's only 3 cents profit because they operate on a really small margin, right? So for every can you steal, you need to sell 15 just to break even on that one can that you stole or took, right? And just thinking about making up for that. And so he leverages this conversation and talks about the importance of having a set of rules. Because first of all, if you don't set that rule in place for yourself, you're putting that additional stress on the business and you're making it harder for your business to succeed. And on top of that, you're also showing the other employees, it's kind of a side note, but you're showing the other employees that you're kind of leading by example and you're incentivizing and encouraging them to do the same thing, which is absolutely not what you want to do, because that would be outright theft. And that's honestly, with a lot of these types of businesses, theft and just stuff going out the back door is one of the greatest reasons that they fail and have trouble with cash flow. So there are a couple things that I think really come out of this analogy for me, with the don't steal the peas analogy, is first and foremost, you got to have a set of rules that you operate and you live by, and you got to be intentional about them, and then you got to execute on those rules. And then the second thing that I got out of this is it's infinitely more important to avoid losses than it is to chase big returns. And I think a lot of times, and I'm going to get into this here in a couple minutes, but I think a lot of times what happens in this world is people are so myopically focused not on their financial structure, not on being financially efficient, not on having a system that they invest with, because they don't want to become who they need to be to get to where they want to go. They just want to give their money to somebody or invest it somewhere and chase a bigger return. And I'm going to show you why that just mathematically doesn't make sense, right? And so that idea of having a set of rules that you execute through and the importance of avoiding losses in accomplishing your financial goals is one of the key factors that come along with this infinite banking concept. And it's also one of the reasons that you have to utilize whole life insurance, because it's all about the guarantees. You cannot utilize index universal life because of the variables that go into it, with the guarantees not being there, with the fact that when you take index loans out of IUL, there is risk on down years that you are going to have additional expenses and additional losses inside of the policy. I know they all sell infinite banking as this positive arbitrage play with IUL. That's not what it's all about. And I encourage you to stick through this, watch all these videos, get through understanding this book. I'm going to explain my entire take on it as we go through the series, and hopefully it'll help you have some clarity on this topic and you can make a better decision for yourself. So once you have this set of rules in place, I think it's really important to understand the biggest problem that people are facing. And he gets into this, and I think the title, it's titled The Problem. That is the section on page 17. I've got the 5th edition here. I'm not sure if there are new additions to this book or not. But what I want to do is I'm gonna go through this, and I've got this here, and I want to just kind of use an analogy. So when you look at the problem that Nelson Nash is talking about, he's saying that you need to. Most people are spending 34.5 cents out of every dollar per dollar on interest, right? So that's 34.5% of your life is getting spent on interest. And that opportunity cost on this, and that's not a phrase that he's really gotten into a lot yet, but that opportunity cost is something that you need to understand. And the idea is about financial efficiency. That's why when I first got into this business and I started really having success, I was always telling people I'm not a life insurance person, I'm a financial efficiency coach, because it's not about the asset, it's not about the life insurance, it's not about infinite banking. Really what it's about this 34.5 cents. It's about being more efficient with that money, avoiding the losses. And make no mistake about it, this is a loss, this is an expense, this is a part of your life, an inefficiency in your life that you have, and it's not necessary. There are ways that you can avoid it. There are systems that you can put in place that are going to help you, right? So here's the deal. He uses an example of an airplane, right? So I'm not an artist, but there we go. There's my airplane, right? So the airplane is going ahead, and the airplane, let's say the airplane is going 350 miles per hour, right? I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden there's a headwind. Yeah, there's this headwind and everything is blowing at the airplane. And this headwind is 50. These are not the analogies that he used. This is not the numbers he used in his book, but this is what I'm using. So the idea is if you're going at 350, but you got a 50 mile per hour headwind, this makes it really hard. That makes it so your speed is gonna be less than. You're gonna be at 300 miles per hour, right? And so the idea is if you think you're going where you wanna go and you're gonna get there at the 350 miles per hour, you're actually moving land speed of about 300 miles per hour because of this headwind. And this headwind is really interest expense, right? That is the challenge. And so this is why people are getting to retirement and they're not able to maintain their standard of living and they're not accomplishing their goals. It's because they got this headwind of interest expense that is just hurting them. And some people's headwind is harder than others, right? Some people's headwind is 100 miles per hour. Some people is even higher, right? Some people have a 500 mile per hour headwind and they're going backwards, right? Like, so it's important to understand. But what we have to do is we have to be thinking about how do we build a tailwind, right? That is the key to success. How do we build a tailwind in this? So if we're going 350 miles per hour on this airplane, right? If we can go 350 miles per hour on this airplane and we're going this way, but if we can set up a system. Now, if I asked you if it would be worth setting up a system that maybe it's in neutral, like you're just flying neutral, you're just going 350 miles per hour, or maybe you have to slow down. You maybe have to go, let's say 320 miles per hour to start. Let's just say that you have to do that. You have to slow down. You're not going 350, but you're going 320. But what you're gonna do, and once again, these are not the book's numbers. This is just kind of my analogy because I think this is a simpler way to understand what the book said. But instead of 350, you slow down, you go 320 miles per hour, but you set up a system that after a, say 5 to 7 year period gives you a tailwind. And that tailwind allows you to go, well, let's just say this, the tailwind, let's just call it 100 mile per hour tailwind. So now instead of going 320, you're actually back going that speed, right, of 350 plus the 100. So now you're going at 450 miles per hour, right? And that will be, enabling you to reach your financial goals much, much faster. That's going to help you get to where you want to go in a much more predictable basis. It's going to set up a system in place that's going to help you avoid losses. It's going to help you have more control of your life. But here's the deal. This 5 to 7 year period, you have to take absolute accountability and responsibility by utilizing, and this is what infinite banking is all about. This is why you got to have a whole life policy. This is why you have to set up and by the way, actually, it doesn't need to be a whole life policy. The whole life policy is simply the most efficient way to do it. That's it. Like if we're going to be talking about doing this and hey, this concept resonates with you, then it just becomes common sense to use a whole life insurance policy because no other asset in the face of the earth is going to provide the benefits and the attributes that a whole life policy is going to do for you, right? And so that's what it comes down to is the idea of this infinite banking system and philosophy is being able to think long term. I'm a big believer in the phrase, and this is kind of my analogy, but I always tell people, you got to be willing to slow down to go fast, right? And so when we look at this, what we're doing here is we're going 320. Why do I say we're going 320? Because when you capitalize a life insurance policy out of the beginning, or out of the gate, you're going to have, like, let's say you're capitalizing it at $10,000 per year. If you're doing that, you're not going to have full liquidity of the $10,000. So yeah, you got to slow down. Your speed is going to be a little lower right here, right? That just is what it is, and there's no getting around that. But if I showed you that you had to slow down by a little bit, say 30 miles per hour, to be able to go 100 miles per hour faster 5 to 7 years from now in everything you're doing, and from year 5, 7, for every $10,000 you put in, you're going to have liquidity, use, and control of that money, plus your account value is going to grow by 11 to 12K plus every single year, and it'll just get better and better and better every year. And then you have access to that money. You can utilize it for investing in real estate, investing in a business, having capital reserves for a business, hard money lending, anything you want ultimately. That's what the system is all about. And so The idea here of being creative, thinking outside of the box, having the set of rules set in place, and you understand what I'm talking about now. This is what I'm talking about, thinking outside of the box, because this is not the current paradigm of personal finance. They don't want you to have control of your money. They want you to put your money in a place, and when I say they, I'm talking the government, like they want you to put your money in 401ks, in IRAs, in what we call qualified plans, right? The reason is because they have control of your money when you do that. You are deferring taxes. A lot of people think you get a tax deduction. You're just getting a tax deferral. And in that tax deferral, the government has control. That is the key. And they have the ability to tax your wealth away from you in those accounts. By doing it this way, you are taking control of everything right out of the gate. That's what you're doing. And you are putting yourself, so you are forcing yourself to grow, to learn, to become somebody different, to become who you need to be to accomplish the life that you want to live. And that, to me, is the key to this entire philosophy, is that you have to take radical self-accountability for the results in your life. And when people say, hey, Chris, who's this for? Who's it not for? The answer to that has nothing to do with your income, because we can always figure that out. Has nothing to do with your debt. We can always figure that out. Has everything to do with your mindset. Do you want to take radical self-accountability for the results in your life? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you do, this can be a great place for you. I can't think of a better place, in fact. But if you're not interested in that, well, then just go do what everybody else is doing and just keep living a mediocre life. Like that just is what it is. You got to do things boldly if you want to create something significant, and you got to be willing to step up to the plate and do something significant. And in order to do that, money is just a tool. So you need to implement a system and set up a set of rules, right? And be disciplined and execute according to those rules. That's what it's all about. And this system is going to help you. So anyway, hope that helps. That is part 2 of my book review. Next video, we're going to be getting into creating a bank like the ones you already know about, right? This is going to be a fun one, because we're going to get into a lot of the technical nuances of infinite banking. So I'm excited. So once again, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're notified every time I launch a new video. We'll have another one of these coming out in the next week. Till then, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.